I always wonder, if it had rained that day, if my parents had argued, if there had been yelling, things breaking, would I remember that day differently? But no, that evening was completely quiet, so eerily normal that it was unsettling. I didn't know what I had expected. Maybe a clearer sign that my life was about to change forever. But all I got were gentle words, tired eyes, and a cold truth. My parents would no longer live together. At the time I was only 8 years old, wearing my favorite blue floral dress, clutching my worn-out stuffed bunny tightly as I sat on the living room couch. In front of me was my mother, Susan, her blonde hair tied up in a bun as always, her face looking paler than usual without makeup. My father, David, still in his work shirt but without a tie, looking exhausted. They sat apart, a space between them as if an invisible boundary had long divided them. Only today, they were finally acknowledging it. "Maggie, sweetheart." My mother spoke first, her voice soft, as if trying not to scare me. "Your father and I have something to tell you." I tightened my grip on my stuffed bunny, looking at both of them, sensing that something was wrong but unable to put it into words. "We're not going to live together anymore," my father continued, his gaze warm but heavy with fatigue. "But don't worry, you'll still have both of us. No shouting, no tears, no accusations. Just a decision, as final as shutting a book after finishing the last page." They told me that my mother would stay in the house while my father would move into an apartment not too far away. I would stay with my mother from Monday to Friday and spend the weekends with my father. Everything had been arranged, so neatly, so logically. I didn't cry. Maybe I was too young to understand that my world had just been split in two. Or maybe I had already grown used to their distance without realizing it. But at that moment, I felt something inside me crack. A small fracture, one that would only grow wider with time. After that night, my father moved out. My mother still smiled at me in the mornings, still brushed my hair before school. My father still picked me up every weekend, still bought me ice cream on hot summer days. Nothing seemed to change too much, but deep down, I knew everything was different. And I was about to learn that sometimes, the quietest changes are the ones that scare you the most. Life after the divorce wasn't as bad as I had feared. My father still picked me up every weekend, and we slowly settled into a new rhythm. Saturday mornings he took me to a small cafe near his place for waffles, where he sipped black coffee while I played with the powdered sugar on my plate. In the evenings we watched old movies on his couch, laughing as if nothing had ever changed. About a year after my father moved out, he started mentioning a woman named Lisa. At first it was just in passing. "Lisa works at the hospital near my place, you know? She's really great." Then her name started coming up more often. And one day, my father told me he wanted me to meet her. The first time I met Lisa was at a small roadside diner. She had soft blue eyes and gentle brown hair, completely different from my mother's sharp features. Sitting next to her was a little boy, 3 years younger than me, with messy curls and mischievous eyes. "Hi, Maggie." Lisa smiled warmly at me, her eyes full of kindness, as if she had been waiting to meet me for a long time. "Your dad talks about you, all the time." The boy looked up from his plate of fries, still chewing. "Are you going to be my sister?" I laughed. "I guess so." His name was Ethan, and from that moment, I knew I had a little brother. Not long after, my father married Lisa. The wedding was simple, but my father and Lisa did everything they could to make me feel like I was part of their special day. I helped Lisa pick out her dress, worked with Ethan on a short speech, and during the ceremony, my father looked at me with teary eyes and told me I would always be an important part of this new family. But on the other side, my mother was writing her own story. She met Jeffrey, a successful businessman with a polished smile and perfectly pressed suits. Unlike Lisa, who made an effort to bring me into their world, Jeffrey didn't seem too concerned about me. But my mother was different. She became happier, more vibrant, as if she had found something she had lost. And just a few months later, she told me she was having a baby. I remember that day, standing in the kitchen, watching her place a hand on her stomach, her eyes full of hope. "You're going to have a baby sister, Maggie. Isn't that exciting?" I nodded. But inside, I wasn't so sure. Everything changed after Emma was born. At first, I thought it was natural. My mother was busy with a newborn, feeding, sleepless nights, endless crying. I told myself it wasn't strange that she spent more time with Emma. I told myself that I was older now, that I didn't need her as much as before. But over time, I realized the distance between my mother and me wasn't just because of a newborn. The first time I truly felt forgotten was on a rainy October afternoon. That day was my first parent-teacher conference in high school. I stood at the school gate, watching as my classmates were picked up one by one. The crowd thinned, the sky darkened, and raindrops drizzled onto my coat. My homeroom teacher, Miss Taylor, stood beside me, glancing at her watch with concern. "Maggie, do you want me to call your mom?" she asked. I had already texted my mom earlier, but there was no reply. So, I nodded. 10 minutes later, Miss Taylor turned to me with an apologetic look. "Your mom said she forgot. Today is an important day for Emma. Her first vaccination appointment." I clenched the straps of my backpack, pressing my lips together. When my mom finally arrived nearly an hour later, she just gave me an awkward smile. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Emma was fussy, and I lost track of time." I stayed silent. But that wasn't the last time. On my 14th birthday, I woke up with excitement, just like every year. But when I walked downstairs, my mom was busy making Emma's bottle, and Jeffrey was glued to his phone, reading the news. No one said anything. I hesitated. "Mom, do you remember what today is?" She glanced at me, frowning slightly as if trying to recall. Then, she suddenly smiled. "Oh, it's Friday, right? I have to take Emma to her dentist appointment." My throat tightened. "No, Mom. Today is my birthday." Her face froze for a moment before she let out an uneasy laugh. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Maggie. I've been so busy, I completely forgot. We'll celebrate this weekend, okay?" But the weekend came and there was no party, no cake, no gifts. I didn't bring it up again, and she never remembered. After that, I spent more and more time at my dad's house. Lisa always greeted me with a warm smile, and Ethan was excited every time I walked through the door. My dad never forgot my birthday, never forgot the important days in my life. Lisa always made sure my favorite snacks were in the fridge. There, I didn't have to fight for attention. One day, when I was practically living at my dad's house, he sat down next to me and said, "Maggie, I talked to your mom. I think you should live here permanently." I looked at him, waiting for an explanation, but he just stayed silent. I knew he didn't need to say it. And I knew why my mom was resisting. Because if I left, she would lose the child support. I officially moved in with my dad when I was 15. At first, my mom didn't argue too much. I think she felt relieved that she no longer had to deal with a teenage daughter while Emma took up all her attention. But I knew the real reason she hesitated. It was the money. Since I was still considered her dependent, my dad continued sending child support every month. But as I got closer to turning 18, things started to change. Even though I no longer lived with her, I still visited once a month. But every time I felt more like a stranger in the house that used to be mine. The older Emma got, the more spoiled she became, and I was nothing more than a guest. One afternoon, I was sitting at the kitchen table doing my homework when Emma, 8 years old at the time, walked in, her blue eyes twinkling with mischief. "Hey, Maggie." She tilted her head at me, her voice innocent but carrying something that sent a chill down my spine. "Dad says, you don't really belong here." I looked up from my notebook, my fingers tightening around my pencil. "What did you just say?" She shrugged, as if it didn't matter. "Dad says you're just a guest. One day, you'll stop coming, and then it'll just be the three of us. Dad, Mom, and me. You're only here because Mom needs the money." A sharp pain spread through my chest, but I didn't let it show. I didn't have to ask who had planted those words in her mind. Jeffrey had never considered me part of his family. I wasn't his daughter. I wasn't someone he had to provide for or care about. I tried to brush it off, but those words haunted me. And then, when I was close to turning 18, my mom made it clear that she agreed with Jeffrey. That day, I went to visit as usual, but instead of her usual indifferent greeting, she was already sitting at the dining table, her expression more serious than usual. Jeffrey leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. "Maggie," my mom said, her voice sickly sweet. "Have you thought about moving out?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" Jeffrey shrugged, his gaze cold. "You'll be 18 next month. After that, your dad won't have to send child support anymore. And, to be honest, your mom and I think it's time for you to be independent." I looked at my mom, hoping she would object, hoping she would say they were just joking. But she stayed silent, avoiding my eyes. Turns out, to them I was nothing more than a number on a bank statement. I didn't argue. There was no point. I just stood up, walked out of that house, and never went back. When I told my dad and Lisa, they weren't surprised. They didn't need to ask to know what had happened, and unlike my mom, they truly wanted me there. When I told my dad I wanted to go to college, he didn't hesitate. "Lisa and I have been saving for you for years. You don't have to worry." I wanted to cry when I heard those words. Not because I was emotional about the money, but because, for the first time, I truly felt cared for. I left my mother's house right after my 18th birthday, carrying a suitcase of clothes and a few small keepsakes. But I didn't feel sad. Maybe I had been preparing for this moment for a long time. I knew I didn't belong there anymore. If I ever had in the first place. Life at my dad's house was much easier. No judgmental looks from Jeffrey, no whispers from Emma, no feeling like I was invisible in my own home. Lisa helped me find a part-time job at a small cafe in town, where I worked morning shifts before class. It wasn't an easy job. Waking up at 5 a.m., making hundreds of coffee orders a day, learning to smile even when customers were rude. But I liked it. Lisa said, "It was easy though in the beginning." Lisa did. In the evenings, I spent time in my room studying and planning for my future. I had been accepted into an in-state university's finance program with a partial scholarship, but I still needed to save money for living expenses. I wasn't worried though. My dad had promised to support me, and more importantly, I had learned how to take care of myself. Lisa always checked in to make sure I was eating properly and if I needed anything. Ethan, though now an annoying teenager obsessed with video games, was still a good little brother. But my mom? She never called. At first I waited. I thought maybe, one day, she would pick up the phone and ask how I was doing, if I was okay, if I needed anything. But my phone never rang with her name on the screen. No messages. No check-ins. On my 19th birthday, Lisa gave me a small cake, Ethan got me a hoodie, and my dad wrote me a handwritten letter telling me how proud he was of me. And my mom? Nothing. That night, I made the mistake of checking her Facebook. A bad habit I couldn't seem to break. Her page was filled with pictures of their perfect family. Jeffrey, my mom, Emma. Parties, vacations, bright happy smiles. I wasn't in a single photo. I had been erased from that picture a long time ago. I closed the app, turned off my phone, and went back to my books. I had plans of my own. I didn't need them anymore. 4 years of college passed faster than I expected. Early mornings making coffee for impatient customers, late nights studying until I passed out at my desk. It was all worth it when I walked across the stage to receive my degree in finance. My dad and Lisa were there at my graduation, along with Ethan, who was now a full head taller than me. My dad pulled me into a tight hug, his eyes shining with pride. "You did it, Maggie. I always knew you would." Right after graduation, I received a job offer from Lisa's brother Ryan, who owned an investment firm. I knew he had only agreed to interview me because of family connections, but I also knew he wouldn't have hired me if I wasn't qualified. I worked hard, proving myself through numbers and smart financial strategies. Within 2 years, I was promoted to senior financial analyst. Every month, I set aside a portion of my income into savings, working toward my biggest goal: buying my own home. Life was good. Peaceful, stable, and completely free of the past. But then, my mother came back. For the first time in 9 years, I got a call from her. Her number was still in my contacts, but I had never seen it appear on my screen in all that time. I hesitated for a few seconds before answering. "Maggie, sweetheart." Her voice was sweet, casual, as if we had been talking regularly. "I've been thinking about you a lot lately. How are you? I miss you so much." I said nothing. A part of me wanted to laugh. 9 years of silence, and now she missed me? "I want you to come over for dinner this Sunday," she continued, her tone eager. "It's been so long since our family was together." Family? I wanted to ask if I was still considered part of that family, but instead I simply said, "Okay." I wasn't sure why I agreed, maybe curiosity. Maybe I wanted to see what she really wanted. That Sunday, I drove my new sedan to her house. When Emma opened the door, she looked me up and down, her eyes flashing with something unreadable. "New car?" she asked, as if that was the most important thing. I didn't respond, I just stepped inside. Everything looked the same. Family pictures covering the walls, but not a single one with me in them. Dinner felt painfully fake. My mother kept bringing up my job, my salary, the things I owned, and then finally, as our plates were nearly empty, she smiled at me. The same smile I had seen so many times before. The smile of someone about to ask for something. "Maggie, I'm so proud of you," she said sweetly, her voice dripping with meaning. "You've worked so hard and built a great career. I know you must have a pretty big savings by now." I set my fork down. So this was the real reason she invited me over? Emma tilted her head, her voice dripping with fake innocence. "You know, I'm about to graduate college. I'm looking for an apartment downtown, but the rent is so expensive." My mother nodded in agreement. "If you could help your sister a little, it would make things so much easier. Family is supposed to support each other, right?" I looked at my mother, then at Emma. After 9 years, they had come to me. Not because they missed me, but because they wanted my money. I had seen this coming. From the moment my mother called to invite me to dinner, I knew she didn't actually want a family reunion. But, even though I had prepared myself, I still felt the slow burn of anger rising inside me. I placed my fork down on my plate and looked straight at my mother. "And how exactly do you want me to help Emma?" She smiled. The same smile I had seen countless times before. Sweet, but calculating. "I know you've saved up quite a bit. You don't need to use it right away, do you? If you could help your sister with rent, or better yet, contribute toward buying her an apartment, that would be wonderful." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "You want me to give Emma my savings?" Emma batted her lashes, trying to look cute. "It's just a small amount, sis. I'll pay you back once I settle into my job." I didn't believe a single word of that. "No," I said firmly, pushing my chair back. "That money is mine, and I worked hard for it. I'm not giving it to anyone." My mother looked at me as if I had just said something so absurd it was laughable. "Maggie, you're acting like this is a big deal. You have a good job, a steady income. Your sister is just starting out. She needs help." I crossed my arms, keeping my voice as calm as possible. "Emma has you and Jeffrey to take care of her. You've spent years funding her life. What about me? When was the last time you helped me?" The air in the room grew tense. Emma slumped back in her chair, arms crossed in irritation. "You're so selfish," she muttered. I turned to my mother. "When was the last time you called me before last week?" She took a sip of water, avoiding my eyes. "Maggie, Don't make a big deal out of this. Families help each other. I raised you for years. Are you really saying you can't give back a little to your sister? I let out a bitter laugh. Raised me? You forgot my 14th birthday. You forgot my parent-teacher conferences. You forgot I even existed the moment Emma was born. And now you remember me? When you need money? Emma suddenly shot up from her chair, her voice shrill. You're so petty. You have so much money and you can't even help me out a little? I shook my head, grabbing my bag. No. And if this is the real reason you wanted to see me, then I think we have nothing left to say. My mother slammed her hand on the table, the sweetness in her voice completely gone. You're being selfish, Maggie. You make good money. You don't need it right now. Your sister needs it more than you do. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. No, and you need to stop trying to manipulate me with the whole family excuse. I've seen this game before. Without waiting for another word, I turned and walked out of that house. Again. And probably for good. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought that after being so blatantly rejected, my mother and Emma would finally understand that I wasn't the naive girl they could manipulate anymore. But I was wrong. 2 weeks after that dinner, I left for a business trip. My company sent me to Chicago for a 10-day financial conference. I left the city feeling relieved, enjoying the break from all the unnecessary family drama. Everything went smoothly. Until day 8. After wrapping up a meeting, I checked my phone and instantly felt my heart stop. Bank notifications. Transfer $2,000. Transfer minus $3,500. Transfer $5,000. A wave of panic shot through me. I opened my banking app and saw that a large sum of money had been withdrawn from my savings account. Over $10,000 in total. The recipient's name? Patricia Monroe. My mother. My hands shook as I immediately called the bank. After confirming that I had not authorized these transactions, I dialed my mother's number. The phone rang 3 times before she answered. Maggie, sweetheart, I was just about to call you. Her voice was overly sweet, as if nothing had happened. I clenched my teeth, trying to stay calm. What did you do to my account? A pause, then a light laugh. Oh, so you saw it. My entire body went cold. How did you do it? She chuckled, as if I had asked a silly question. Do you remember when I visited your apartment the other week? When I said I needed to use the bathroom? Well, I just needed a few minutes to copy your key. I froze, anger erupting in my chest. You broke into my apartment and stole my money? My mother sighed, her voice shifting into fake patience. Don't say it like that, Maggie. I was just helping Emma. She needs a proper place to start her life after graduation, and you have the means to help. How can you be so selfish as to refuse your own sister? I tightened my grip on my phone. Return the money. Now. Or I'll call the police. She let out a laugh. This time, a mocking one. Oh, come on, Maggie, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't actually press charges against your own mother, would you? She didn't know that this time, she had gone too far. I spent the entire night after that call thinking. A part of me wanted to believe she would realize her mistake and return the money on her own, without me having to escalate things. But I knew that would never happen. The next morning, I went straight to the police station. I filed a formal complaint against Patricia Monroe, my biological mother, for theft and financial fraud. I provided all the evidence, bank statements, text messages, call logs, and most importantly, a recording of our conversation from the night before. In it, she openly admitted to breaking into my apartment, copying my key, and withdrawing money from my account without my consent. The officer taking my report hesitated. Are you sure you want to go through with this? She's still your mother. I looked him straight in the eye and nodded. I'm sure. 2 days later, I received a call from Jeffrey. I hadn't saved his number, but I recognized that deep, authoritative voice immediately. Maggie. he started, sounding calm but still commanding. "You're not seriously going to press charges against your own mother, are you? You know what kind of consequences this could have." I crossed my arms, keeping my tone even. "If she returns all the money immediately, I'll drop the case." A long silence. Then he let out a humorless chuckle. "You can't do this to your mother. Do you know she's been crying for days? She raised you, sacrificed so much for you. And now you're throwing her in jail over a little money?" I clenched my phone, the familiar sting of manipulation creeping in. But this time, I didn't let it take hold. She chose to steal from me. Now she has to deal with the consequences. This isn't a little money. This is my life savings. "You really have no compassion, do you?" Jeffrey lowered his voice, applying pressure. "We're family." I let out a cold laugh. "Family? Where were you when I needed one?" When he realized I wasn't budging, Jeffrey hung up without another word. The trial moved quickly. There was too much evidence against my mother. The judge found her guilty of financial theft, but since it was her first offense, she was given probation instead of jail time. However, she was ordered to repay every cent within 30 days. Right after the trial, I took one more important step. I filed a restraining order against both my mother and Jeffrey. I had closed this door for good. 30 days later, the stolen money was transferred back into my account. I wasn't surprised that my mother complied. She had no other choice. As I checked my bank balance, I felt a strange sense of relief. Not because I had my money back, but because I had regained control over my life. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. With my money secured, I resumed my plans to buy a house, as if nothing had happened. I found a charming colonial-style home in a quiet neighborhood, just 15 minutes from my dad's house. It wasn't huge, but it had a spacious backyard, perfect for barbecues, and a cozy living room where I could host the people who truly mattered. On closing day, my dad came with me. As the agent handed over the paperwork, he gave my shoulder a reassuring squeeze, a proud smile on his face. "I always knew you'd do it," he said. Lisa and Ethan were just as excited. Lisa flooded my inbox with furniture links, while Ethan, now a tall young man, promised to help me move in free of charge. The next few days were filled with cardboard boxes, rolls of packing tape, and laughter as my dad and Lisa helped me assemble furniture. This was my real family. Not the people who abandoned me, not the ones who used me, but the ones who had stood by me when I needed them the most. My mother kept trying to reach out. She sent messages, left voicemails, even asked mutual acquaintances to speak on her behalf. At first, her tone remained gentle, pretending as if nothing had happened. "Maggie, I know you're angry, but I'm still your mother. Can we talk?" When I didn't respond, she switched tactics. Guilt-tripping. Even blaming me. "Maggie, are you really this cruel? You're cutting off your own mother over a few measly dollars?" I didn't reply. I had learned my lesson. On the day I moved into my new home, I threw a small housewarming party. My dad brought wine, Lisa baked a cake, and Ethan helped me set up my new TV. As we celebrated together, I realized something important. Family isn't defined by blood. Family is made up of the people who love and respect you. And in the end, I had found mine. Maggie's story is a powerful reminder that true family isn't determined by blood, but by love, respect, and support. Not everyone is born into a family that offers unconditional love. Some people have to fight to break free from manipulation and exploitation by their own relatives. But what matters most is learning to stand on your own, protect yourself, and seek out relationships that truly deserve you. In the end, real family is made up of the people who stand by you when you need them the most. Not those who only appear when they need something from you. What do you think about Maggie's story? Have you ever experienced something similar or know someone who has been taken advantage of by their own family? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful stories about family and life. I almost died at my own engagement party. Not because of an accident or an allergy, but because of a glass of red wine handed to me by my own mother. A fleeting moment, an action that seemed harmless, and it turned my entire life upside down. What if I told you my mother planned everything, from the table flowers to my death, all while smiling like she was the most perfect mother in America? I never imagined I'd be the daughter who had to swap glasses with her sister to survive. But what's worse is that even after it all, she denied everything, acting like it was just a minor incident on a beautiful evening. If I hadn't switched glasses that day, I might not be here telling you this story. My mother's name is Judith, a 58-year-old woman living in the suburbs of Richmond, Virginia. Everything about her was artificially perfect. Hair styled like wax sculpture, red lipstick always flawless whether it was 8 in the morning or 11 at night, and a voice sweet like honey but cold like steel. She always wanted to be the woman behind every success, even when that success was her own daughter's wedding. The party took place at a rented outdoor estate next to Swift Creek Lake. The space was lined with candles, hanging lights, white lilies, and soft jazz playing in the background, like it was meant to lull everyone's judgment. Outside smelled of fresh grass and morning dew, but inside was just tension. I, Nora Williams, 32, a freelance photographer engaged to Jason Hartman, 35, a successful attorney, was surrounded by people I didn't even invite. My 3 closest friends, Cassie, Jane and Liv, were all missing. Each gave an excuse about a last-minute emergency, but all 3 skipping the one day that was supposed to matter most? Too strange. I felt a chill the moment I stepped into that space. But I'd learned, since childhood, never embarrass Mom in front of guests. I was talking with Aunt Gloria, a woman who adored cats and blueberry tarts, when my mother appeared behind me, holding 2 glasses of dark red wine that looked like blood. "For the most beautiful bride tonight," she said, her smile thin as a receipt. I took the glass on the left, brought it to my nose and immediately sensed something was off. The scent wasn't wine. It wasn't sour, moldy, or spoiled. It was strange. A faint chemical sharpness, dry bitterness, and an oddly sweet aftersmell, like a dissolved sleeping pill. My chest tightened as I kept holding the glass, and my eyes shifted toward my mother. She was still smiling, still graceful, still too perfect. That's when Emily, my 26-year-old sister, ran up, beaming from a compliment someone gave her about the red satin dress Mom had chosen. She raised her own glass and laughed. "Cheers, future Mrs. Hartman." I don't know why I did it. I just did, instinctively, as if my body knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. I swapped glasses with her mid-laugh like it was some playful sisterly thing. "Ladies first," I said with a smirk. Emily rolled her eyes, clinked glasses and took a full sip. I only touched my lips to hers. Never drank. 30 minutes later, while I was helping the staff relight a few candles blown out near the lake, a piercing scream erupted near the drink table. The crash of glass, chairs scraping, then someone yelled, "Emily! Oh my God, Emily!" I turned. My sister was trembling, clutching her chest, her face pale as chalk, her eyes rolling back. And then she collapsed. Not a word, just silence. I ran, like someone deranged, tripping over light cords, tearing my dress. But I didn't care. My mother, Judith, was already there. She knelt beside Emily, fanning her with a cocktail napkin and murmuring, "She probably drank too fast, or maybe didn't eat anything today." I froze. The scene felt ripped from a bad movie. But the emotion was too real. My heart was pounding uncontrollably. And the worst part? Was the look on my mother's face when she glanced at me. Not panic, not concern, but assessment. I said nothing. I didn't dare. But inside me a voice started screaming, "That was your glass, Nora." And that was the moment everything began to fall apart. I never thought I'd watch my sister collapse right in front of me, in the middle of a crowd that was supposed to be celebrating me, the bride-to-be. But the name everyone screamed wasn't Nora, it was Emily, and the sound of breaking glass mixed with shrieks tore through me like a blade. I rushed to her, my mind blank. Emily lay there, motionless, lips bluish, hands twitching slightly. A man was yelling for an ambulance. I dropped to my knees beside her, desperately searching for signs of breath. And my mother? Judith was already across from me, patting Emily's face gently, repeating, "She just fainted, maybe low blood sugar, she hasn't eaten since lunchtime." Her voice was smooth as always, but something was deeply wrong. Not with Emily, with how calm my mother was. Too calm. Too rehearsed. She pulled a silk handkerchief from her purse and slowly dabbed Emily's forehead, like an actress in a community theater tragedy. "Don't call 911, she just needs to rest," she said to me with a warped smile. I stared at her. My whole life, I'd seen Mom fake it. Fake concern, fake support, fake being the perfect mother. But never had I seen her perform like this. Her face showed zero shock, no flicker of real fear, just calculation. "She needs a doctor," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "We need to call an ambulance." "Nora," she said, grabbing my hand gently. "You're overreacting. I already called our private doctor." A private doctor? How could she have moved so fast? The guests began to thin out as the paramedics arrived. Emily was wheeled away, her face still ghostly and still. I went with her in the ambulance. Mom didn't argue. She simply smiled and said, "I'll join you later, you go ahead." Inside the ambulance, I held my sister's hand. It was ice cold. I leaned close and whispered, "Don't die on me, Emily, please." At that point, I still clung to denial. I wanted to believe it was a freak incident, an allergic reaction, a heat stroke. I didn't want to consider the unthinkable. That my own mother may have done this. But my instincts didn't allow me to ignore it. I remembered that wine, the sharp, faintly sweet scent, something familiar I couldn't place. I remembered the way she looked at me when I raised the glass. She had orchestrated everything, the curated guest list, the remote venue with poor reception, the isolation wrapped in celebration. And I remembered the moment I switched glasses. If I hadn't, I might have been the one on that stretcher. Fairfax Memorial Hospital welcomed us under a wash of sterile white light. Nurses rushed Emily into the ER. I stood outside the room, gripping my phone like a lifeline. Jason called, his voice panicked. I told him just one thing. "Meet me at the hospital." Emily collapsed. "Can you come?" 15 minutes later, Jason arrived. I looked at him with eyes that begged the question I didn't dare ask. "Did you know? Did you know my mother was capable of this?" But I said nothing. "Not yet." The doctor stepped out of the room, removed his gloves, and spoke in a serious tone. "We found traces of a sedative in the patient's bloodstream. It wasn't from food or an allergic reaction. Most likely it was ingested." My face went numb. Something caught in my throat. "What kind of drug?" Jason asked. "At this point we suspect it's the type of benzodiazepine. Further testing is needed for confirmation." I nodded, eyes fixed on the doctor's face. I needed more time. But I already knew. I knew exactly what was happening. When I returned to the event to grab my purse and jacket, most of the guests had already left. My mother was chatting with Mrs. Janice, her tennis buddy. As if nothing had happened. "Ah, my sweet Nora," my mother beamed. "I was just telling Janice what a wonderful evening it's been. Everything went perfectly." I gave a dry smile. "Except for the part where Emily nearly died." "Don't exaggerate," she snapped. "She was just sleep-deprived and drank too fast." I warned her about that. "I smelled something in the wine, Mom," I said, soft but clear. Her face didn't twitch. Not even a raised eyebrow, just a slight narrowing of her eyes. "You're starting to imagine things, Nora. Don't let emotion override logic." I took a step back. And if I hadn't swapped glasses with Emily? This time she stayed silent. No denial, no explanation, just stood there, calm and composed, like she always did when I asked the wrong questions. That night, I went home. Alone. Jason wanted to stay at the hospital with Emily. I didn't blame him. But inside me, something had shifted. A silent storm was rising. I dug through my messages from Cassie. She had written, "Your mom said you were really stressed and didn't want to be disturbed, so we decided not to come today." I opened my laptop and typed, line by line. Guard investigation file, Judith Williams. I wasn't the obedient daughter anymore. I was the person who had nearly been killed, and I needed to know what she had done, for how long, and why. I couldn't sleep that night. Every sound in the house, the soft hum of the fridge, the wind whispering through the door frame, echoed like a reminder. I had almost died at the hands of my own mother. But what haunted me more than the drugged wine was her reaction when I said I swapped glasses with Emily. She didn't flinch, didn't panic, just waited. Like she wanted to see what I'd do next. I opened my laptop and scrolled through old messages from Cassie, my best friend from college. Her text kept repeating in my head. "Your mom said you were too stressed and didn't want to be bothered, so we didn't come." I had never said that. I had never told Cassie or anyone to stay away from the engagement party. My mother had interfered. She had handpicked who was allowed near me. Like I was some prop on a perfect stage, and only the silent were welcome. At 3 a.m., I messaged Cassie. "Can you call me? This is serious. It's about my mom." 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Her voice was sleepy but kind. "Nora, what's going on? I need to know. Exactly. What did my mom say to you?" Cassie went quiet for a moment. "Judith called me 3 days before the party. She said you were exhausted, overwhelmed, maybe going through a mild depressive phase, and didn't want to be triggered by old friends." I clenched the phone. Did you believe her? I wasn't sure. But she was very convincing. And she brought up last year when you cried in your car after Jason canceled a date. She said you weren't doing well. I let out a bitter laugh. My mother stored every vulnerable moment like ammunition. And she used it whenever she needed me quiet. "Cassie? I think my mom drugged my wine, but Emily drank it instead." Oh my God. I don't have solid proof yet, but I'm starting to see. This wasn't the first time. I hung up, my hand trembling. The next morning, I dug through my old mailbox, the one I barely checked anymore. In it, I had kept letters, photos, and random keepsakes from my early 20s. And there I found a letter. Not from Cassie, but from Mark. My ex-boyfriend from when I was 23. The guy I thought had cheated with a classmate? The one who vanished without a word. In the letter were a few rushed lines. I don't know if you'll ever read this. But I had to try. "Judith called me. She said if I didn't break up with you, she'd reveal the lawsuit you asked me to testify in last year. She said it would cost me my scholarship. I tried texting you, but I think she changed your number or blocked me." I froze. I remembered when Mark disappeared, my mother said. "He's no good, Nora. I knew the moment I saw him. That kind of man would ruin you." And I believed her. I cried for days, then stuffed it into the failed relationship box. But now I knew. Mark didn't leave me. My mother pushed him away. It didn't stop there. I checked my old email account, the one I hadn't touched in years. In the spam folder, I found a message from 4 years ago, from an unfamiliar address. Subject: "Your mom called me." The sender was Harper, a collaborator from a photo exhibit I once worked on. We had been close, then suddenly fell out after an irrational copyright argument. But the email said that my mom had gently warned Harper that I was mentally unstable, and had a tendency to self-sabotage professional relationships. Judith. It was always her. Always behind the random decisions that left me isolated. Friends disappeared, career opportunities slipped away. And I thought it was me. I had lived nearly 10 years trapped in an invisible web of control. That afternoon, I drove to Jason's house, the man who was soon to be my husband. He greeted me at the door, and when he saw how pale I looked, he pulled me into his arms. "Are you okay? Has Emily woken up yet?" "She's still under observation. But I need to talk to you." We sat at the dining table. I told him everything, every detail, every event I had pieced together over the past 24 hours. When I spoke about Mark, about Harper, about Cassie, Jason looked at me like he was seeing a completely different person. "You think your mom did all of this, so you'd have no one left but her?" he asked softly. "I don't think anymore. I know, and I need you to understand this before we get married." Jason didn't speak for a few seconds. Then he held my hand, so gently I almost thought he'd pull away. "I believe you, Nora. But if this is real, we can't stay silent." I nodded. I didn't want to be silent anymore. Silence was what allowed Judith Williams to build a cage around me for 30 years without me even noticing. That night, I began to write. Not to share, but to document. Every piece of evidence. Every person involved. Every threat masked as affection. I titled the file, Control Files, Judith Williams. And I knew. This was only the beginning. I don't remember how long I sat in the car after leaving Jason's house. I only knew that the sky had gone dark at some point, and the streetlights streaked across the windshield like brushstrokes on ink paper. In my head, Judith's voice kept echoing. Cold, rational, and commanding. And I, her eldest daughter, had obediently bowed my head for 32 years, believing she always acted for my own good. When I got home, Emily was resting in the living room. The soft lighting cast shadows over her pale face. Tamsin, her fiancé, sat next to her, his expression still dazed as if he couldn't fully grasp what had just happened. "You're back?" Emily asked weakly, her eyes barely open. I sat down beside her, cautiously, like she might break apart. "Yeah, did the hospital say anything?" "They want to keep monitoring me for a few days. Tamsin wanted to take me back to our parents' house, but I don't want to go." I cut in. "No, you're not going back there." She nodded slowly, as if even that motion caused pain. A quiet moment passed. Then suddenly I took her hand. "Emily, you were in love with a girl named Sophie, right?" Her whole body froze. Her eyes widened like I had just unearthed her deepest secret. "How do you know that?" "I once saw a photo of you two hugging. Hidden in your suitcase behind a stack of thick sweaters." Emily swallowed hard. "That was a long time ago. Don't tell Mom, she doesn't know." I shook my head. "No. Judith knows. I think she knew from the start." This time, Emily didn't respond right away. She just lowered her head, her shoulders trembling slightly. She called Sophie's parents, told them we were violating moral codes in the dorm, threatened to sue unless they pulled Sophie out of school. Her voice grew smaller, like she was whispering to herself. Sophie's dad was a local bank manager. Mom said she'd leak it to the press. I felt my fists clench. Each word out of Emily's mouth was a knife slicing through memory, bloodless, but endlessly painful. "What else did she do?" I asked. Emily looked up, eyes glossy but dry. "She made me see a psychologist. Dr. Rachel Vaughn. One she picked. Said it was to balance my emotions. 3 sessions a week. She drove me there and sat in for the first 2. I could barely breathe." "She sat in the sessions? With you?" Emily nodded. "She told the doctor I had mild personality disorders, gender identity issues, and uncontrollable behavior. After a month, the doctor agreed to write a report recommending I take a medical leave. I was suspended for 1 semester." "Is this in your academic record?" "Yes. And when I applied for an internship at Nix Media, they turned me down. for being psychologically unstable. I jumped to my feet. Judith destroyed everything. Yours, mine, and she still walks around like some saint. Emily let out a dry laugh. I used to think she did it for my own good. I believed I was actually sick. That loving Sophie was a disorder. That I was a burden. I sat beside her and wrapped my arm around her shoulder. No, Emily, you're not crazy. You're not broken. You were just a child, twisted by the person who was supposed to protect you. We sat like that for a long time. After Emily fell asleep, I rummaged through Dad's old bookshelf. In the bottom drawer I found a thick, worn folder, the pages yellowed at the edges. I knew he always kept copies of our academic and medical records. When I opened it, I saw the photocopy of Dr. Rachel Vaughn's report, dated November 14, 2018. Patient Emily W. exhibits emotional instability, signs of gender identity deviation, and resistance to traditional family structure. Recommended temporary withdrawal from studies and continued psychological monitoring for at least 6 months. My hands trembled as I turned the page. Handwritten notes. Information provided by guardian, mother, Judith Williams. Mother insists her daughter is negatively influenced by a recent same-sex relationship and requests an emotional stabilization treatment plan to restore her moral values. I couldn't read further. My tears blurred the ink. Judith didn't just control the present. She rewrote the past. She twisted our memories into medical shame. Every time Emily cried, every time I failed, every moment we doubted ourselves, it was because someone had already been pulling the strings. I closed the file and held it to my chest, not to hide it, but to prepare for battle. I wasn't afraid of my mother anymore. 2 days after Emily collapsed, I walked into a small coffee shop in South Richmond, with trembling hands and a heart pounding like a war drum. Raina Foster, my old best friend from high school, was already sitting at a corner table, beside a frosted glass wall and a fake cactus. We hadn't seen each other in almost 3 years. Not because of a fight. One day she just stopped replying, and like always, I assumed it was my fault. But when I texted her at 2 a.m. last week with one line, "I think my mom poisoned Emily," Raina called me back in exactly 7 minutes. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" Raina asked, eyes filled with both fury and pity. "I have no way back," I said, "and Emily deserves to know the truth." We started with the surveillance footage. Raina knew someone from the event company. Sean, the technician in charge of the camera system at Belgrove Estate, where my mother hosted the engagement party. One phone call and a few pointed remarks about something suspicious during the event were enough to convince Sean to send us a copy of the kitchen camera segment, where my wine glass had been prepared. That afternoon, Raina and I sat in front of the laptop screen, watching a truth I had never dared to visualize take form. My mother. Judith appeared on camera at 6:42 p.m., her hair neatly pinned, wearing a navy blue dress and lace gloves. She walked into the kitchen alone, took 2 wine glasses from the cabinet and poured red wine from a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon on the counter. Then, she pulled a small brown bottle from her purse, opened it, and added 2 drops into one of the glasses. She stirred it gently with a metal spoon. Watching her wipe the spoon with a napkin, place it back in her purse, and adjust her hair in the reflection of the microwave door, it cut into me like a cold knife. "You see that?" Raina whispered. She didn't even hesitate. When I walked into frame shortly after, Judith quickly placed a napkin over the spiked glass and handed it to me with a gentle smile. A deadly smile. I turned away, nauseated. "Save the video, make 3 backups, one for me, one for a lawyer, and one just in case." Raina nodded. The next step was the medication. That night, I pretended to drop by my mother's house to get Emily's insurance papers. She wasn't home. Only my father was there, a man who had mentally checked out a decade ago. He sat in the living room, eyes glued to the TV, not even asking why I went into the master bathroom. I rummaged through the cabinet under the sink, and just as I suspected, 3 small prescription bottles, all labeled Judith Williams. filled at 3 different pharmacies. 1 bottle of alprazolam, 1 of diazepam, and a third, with a stranger name, cyclopram, a type of neurological depressant. I took pictures of each bottle, every label, every expiration date. 2 bottles were full, 1 was nearly empty. I returned to Raina's. She greeted me with a quick hug, then pointed straight at a USB drive on the table. I just got a message from Sean. He said that night your mom left the venue close to midnight, walking along the side of the estate. He got curious and checked the side corridor camera. Raina opened the second video. At 11:56 p.m. Judith appeared on screen. Wearing rubber gloves, holding the small brown bottle, walking out to the backyard, and pouring liquid down a drainage pipe, then rinsing it with water. Not a hint of panic, only precision. Raina exhaled. This is destruction of evidence, Nora. I felt my entire body freeze. I can't believe that woman once called me the light of her life. Raina looked at me, her voice low. She doesn't love anyone, she only loves control. The next morning, I met with Mr. George Carter, the longtime neighbor who lived next to my parents. He was a retired chemistry lab technician who had worked 30 years for a pharmaceutical company. I asked him directly, "Did you see anything strange in the backyard the night of April 16th? He nodded instantly. Your mom came out late that night, carrying a small bottle and poured it down the backyard drain. She also washed her hands very carefully. I found it odd. Thick rubber gloves. The kind we used when handling toxic compounds." I swallowed hard. "Would you be willing to write that down and sign it for me?" Mr. Carter didn't ask why. He just nodded, pulled a sheet of paper from a drawer, and carefully wrote out every detail by hand. That evening, I laid everything out on the table. Video from the kitchen showing my mom dropping in the substance. Photos of the prescription bottles, with 3 different pharmacy labels. Footage from the back camera showing her disposing of the liquid. Immediate. A handwritten statement from Mr. Carter. I put everything into a folder and wrote in red pen on the cover. Evidence. Phase 1, the unavoidable truth. Raina entered the room carrying 2 mugs of hot tea. I sent copies to the lawyer, the best one in intentional harm cases. I nodded, gripping the edge of the table. This time, she won't walk away. My eyes were calm like the surface of a lake before a storm. No longer the daughter afraid of her mother. No longer the quiet child. I was now the witness. I was the survivor. And I was the one flipping the board. I chose Sunday, noon, to host the family lunch. A cozy meal, as my mom used to call it. I sent the invitation through the old group chat we once used for planning Christmas and wedding logistics. This time, I didn't say much, just one line. There's something important to discuss. No one leaves the table early. Outside, the sky was overcast, like it knew what was coming. I prepared Mom's favorite pot roast, with carrots and onions, rich, fragrant, and just spicy enough. I wanted her to feel comfortable. To think, she still had the stage. The dining table had been repositioned in the center of the living room, set with exactly 6 chairs. Emily and Tamsin arrived first. She still looked weak, but her color had improved. Tamsin barely made eye contact with me, maybe sensing that today wasn't going to be just lunch. Raina arrived next, holding a black USB drive, eyes cautious. Jason followed, silent, greeting everyone with a slight nod. And then Judith walked in, like royalty. She wore a shearling coat, hair pinned up, a string of white pearls at her neck. Her left hand carried a tray of lemon bars, her right outstretched, like she was blessing the room. "Nora, darling, you always know how to set things up so beautifully." I smiled, small but firm. "Thank you for coming, Mom." Once everyone was seated, I stood up. No toast, no food. I plugged the USB into the TV and selected the clip from the venue. "Before we eat, I want you all to see this, just a short clip." No one objected. They probably expected wedding pictures. Or a funny video of Emily. But then Judith appeared on screen, in the kitchen. She pulled a small brown bottle from her purse, dropped something into a glass, stirred it, wiped the spoon, and smiled into her reflection. No dialogue. Just the sound of everyone's heartbeat filling the silent room. I skipped to the second video. Her pouring the liquid down the drain behind the venue at midnight. Wearing gloves, eyes focused. I didn't need to explain anything. When the video ended, I turned, my voice low but clear. That glass was meant for me. But Emily drank it. The room froze. Tamsin leaned back in his chair, face pale. Jason straightened in his seat as if realizing he had crossed into unfamiliar territory. Raina crossed her arms, waiting. Judith carefully remained composed. "This is a misunderstanding," she said slowly. "You're overreacting. I was simply trying to enhance the wine. I thought I could make it a bit lighter for you." "With tranquilizers," Raina said coldly. "Who are you to meddle in my family's affairs?" Judith snapped. "The one helping Nora expose you," Raina replied without blinking. Judith stood and turned to me. "You are ungrateful, Nora. I've done everything to help you. You always chose the wrong men, the wrong friends, the wrong career. I couldn't let you ruin your future again." I stepped closer, each movement deliberate, my voice like steel. "You don't get to decide my future by drugging me." She let out a bitter laugh. "I did it to protect you." Emily suddenly spoke, her voice trembling, but firm. "And you protected me by forcing me into therapy because I loved a girl." The words landed like a slap. Tamsin turned to her, confused. "What? You went to therapy?" Emily nodded, eyes brimming. "Not because I was sick, but because she wanted to erase who I really was." Judith hissed. "I did nothing wrong, I just didn't want you people ruining the image of this family." By destroying your own child?" Jason asked, speaking for the first time. I pulled out my phone and displayed the photos of the prescription bottles. Mr. Carter's signed statement. Everything projected like evidence in a courtroom. "You used alprazolam, diazepam, and cyclopronin. All prescribed in your name. You put drugs in that wine. The cameras caught it. A witness saw you dumping it. What else do you want to deny?" Judith collapsed into her chair. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't resisted, everything would have gone smoothly." I looked her straight in the eye, the fear long gone. "Because we resisted, you lost control." The room was silent. No one touched the pot roast. No one went near the lemon bars. Just one woman, who once pulled every string like a master puppeteer, now sat tangled in the threads, with no one left to untie them. I unplugged the USB and placed it in my bag. "Lunch is over, and so is your performance." I turned and walked to the door. 3 days after that fateful lunch, I received an email from the Mid-Atlantic Visual Fund, where I had submitted a grant proposal for my photo project The Silenced. Subject: "Thank you for your submission." But the second sentence made my blood run cold. "Due to the tone of your recent follow-up email, we no longer feel the values of your project align with the mission of our organization." I had never sent them anything beyond the initial application and portfolio. I called Raina immediately. She showed up within 20 minutes, carrying her laptop and a half-baked tray of cookies. "I want to check the metadata on that email," she said, opening her computer. "And the recent login history on your account." 15 minutes later, a new email address appeared on screen, almost identical to mine, just one character off. It had sent a snide, mocking message to the Mid-Atlantic Fund, criticizing the review panel and ridiculing the selection process. "The IP address matches the location in Falls Grove," Raina muttered. 2 blocks from your mom's estate." I nodded, heart pounding. "Judith." Before I could fully process it, Curtis, my fiancé, called. "Nora! I think I've been hit too." "What happened?" "The Austin film crew. They just froze the contract. Someone anonymously emailed them saying I'm difficult to work with, have a history of drug abuse, and was once sued for emotional coercion in the workplace." I jumped to my feet. That lawsuit was dropped. No one knew about it except me and my mother. He paused, then said, a fake email in my name. A fabricated accusation against Curtis. And I knew Judith had entered her counterattack phase. No lawsuits, no confrontation, just character assassination. That afternoon, Raina sent me a screenshot, a Facebook account named Nora Truths 2023. The profile photo was a blurry image of me, and the bio was filled with venom, calling me manipulative, dishonest, emotionally unstable. One post showed a picture of Curtis and me toasting at the engagement party, with the caption, "How many lies fit into one toast?" Another was a doctored screenshot of my old 2014 comments, edited to look like I was mocking the LGBTQ+ community, when, in reality, I had said the opposite. "No one has access to these photos except your mom," Raina said. And the last post was made from an iPhone 8 Plus, same model as hers. The metadata's not even scrubbed. It felt like someone had dragged fingernails down my spine. She doesn't just want to destroy me, she wants to erase me and replace me with a version she controls. Curtis came over that night, eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. I didn't think she'd go this far. I grabbed his hand. "You were wrong. She'll go even further. Unless we fight back." The next morning I received an anonymous message. "You should stay quiet. This isn't your story." No name, no profile photo, the message vanished after 10 minutes. I looked at Raina. "This isn't Cold War anymore, this is a purge." She nodded. "She wants people to think you're emotionally unstable. That Curtis is a mess. That we're all just ungrateful kids making up lies to ruin our saintly mother." 2 days later, Emily came to my house with dark circles under her eyes, and her lips pressed tight. "Tamsin doesn't believe me anymore." I sat next to her and asked, gently, "What happened?" Mom called him privately. She told him I had a history of mental illness, that the fainting was due to panic, not poisoning. She sent him a scan of Dr. Rachel's report from when I was 20. Emily broke down, hands shaking. She told him I might be unfit to raise our son, that he should seek custody if we break up. I gripped her shoulders. "She's twisting your past to steal your present." "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "You stand up. You speak out. If you don't, she'll rewrite your future too." That night, I reopened the folder, control file, Judith Williams. We already had the evidence. But I knew the truth alone wasn't strong enough. I needed light. I needed it, public. Not for revenge, but to reclaim our voices. I started editing a video. The opening clip was Judith spiking the wine. Next, Emily's story. Thence, Curtis recorded, describing the smear email. Raina added metadata for the screenshot. I layered in emails, an audio clip of the anonymous threat, and ended the video with one sentence. "If you've ever had your truth twisted by family, you're not alone." I hadn't hit publish yet, but my hand hovered over the upload button. We hadn't won yet, but Judith wasn't untouchable anymore. And this time, I wasn't just protecting myself. I was breaking the silence for every child who had been turned into a puppet by twisted love. I didn't sleep the night I hit upload. The video was titled, "When Love Becomes Control, A True Story." I kept the narrator anonymous, blurred the faces, left only the sounds, documents, and chilling images. I didn't say my mother's name. I didn't have to. Her actions told the story louder than any label. 8 minutes and 19 seconds, the entire video. Long enough to expose a full control mechanism inside a family. Short enough not to get lost in the algorithm. In the first 2 hours, it had 300 views. By morning it hit 4,800. By noon, over 20,000 people had seen it. More importantly, the comments poured in. I was forced into therapy by my own mother because I'm bisexual. It took me 10 years to realize I wasn't crazy. I just didn't fit my parents' script. This isn't just your story, it's a generational story. I read every word. My heart beat with pain and empathy. Maina sent me a screenshot. A blog post from the National Family Psychology Forum had shared the video with the caption, "A powerful example of the invisible trauma caused by emotional control within families." That afternoon, I received a message from an unknown number. "I'm Dr. Vaughn. I saw the video. If you need an official statement from me, I'm willing." I trembled. The very doctor Judith had once manipulated now saw the truth. A key piece of her control system had just cracked and fallen away. 3 days later, Judith disappeared from all social media groups. No more lifestyle tips, no more gala photos, no more sweet comments under other moms' posts. Her page went silent. A week later, someone snapped a photo of her at the local farmer's market. No makeup, baseball cap, sunglasses on a cloudy day. And beneath the post, someone commented, "Isn't that the mom from the video? I can't believe it." I didn't celebrate, but I finally exhaled after years of holding my breath. Emily met with Tamsin again. They talked at the park near their house, under the old oak tree where they'd once held their son's first birthday party. "I used to think you were imagining things," Tamsin admitted. "But when I watched the video you told me about, I saw Judith's eyes. There's nothing left to deny." "I don't need your forgiveness," Emily said. "I just need you to believe me." Tamsin took her hand for the first time in months. "I don't just believe you. I'm sorry I didn't stand by you sooner." They walked together, hand in hand. Their son ran ahead, laughing as he picked up a feather. And I knew. The cracks were beginning to heal. Curtis decided to share his story at a team meeting at the new law firm where he worked, one that valued attorneys' mental health as much as it valued contract clauses. He spoke about how Judith once offered him $20,000 to walk away from my life. How she had threatened to dig up an old lawsuit to ruin him. And he ended with a sentence that made the room fall completely silent. "I'm not saying this to attack anyone. I'm saying it so that anyone stuck in toxic control knows. There's another way. You can stand up. You can start over." When he came home, I held him for a long time. Not because I needed someone to lean on, but because I finally had someone who stood beside me. Unconditionally, without fear. I reopened the photo project The Silenced. This time, I didn't apply for funding, I printed it myself. Rented a small gallery space in Brooklyn. No big promotions. Just one post on the anonymous account I used to upload the video. On opening day, over 50 people showed up. Each portrait came with a short story. No names, no faces, just eyes and emotion. An older woman stood in front of a photo of a young girl holding a diagnosis sheet labeled emotional disorder, age 18. She cried for 15 minutes straight. When I approached her, she simply said, "Thank you for speaking for those who were forced into silence." 2 weeks later, I received an envelope. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. It was Judith. Just 4 words. "You shamed this family." No apology, no admission, just another blade. I didn't cry. I wasn't angry. I lit a match and burned the letter in the kitchen sink. The final bit of ash fell onto the cold steel. Silent. I whispered to no one, "You don't get to write the ending to my story anymore." That night, I placed my camera on the wooden shelf in my studio, not to record, not to shoot, just as a reminder. I had once been watched, controlled, distorted. And I survived. I laid my hand on my stomach. A flutter, like butterfly wings, brushed my palm. My child will not grow up in silence. They will never have to ask for permission to love. They will never be trapped in a perfect mold. And I felt it. Nora Williams was finally free to be myself. My story isn't just about a glass of wine laced with drugs. It's about escaping the sweet but brutal grip of a mother who masked control as love. I lost friends, opportunities, and nearly lost myself. Because I believed silence meant loyalty. But truth must be told, and self-worth can't be bought with a fake smile. I don't share the past to fuel hatred, but to remind myself, and those like me, That we have the right to freedom, to trust ourselves, and to live honestly. What do you think about Nora's choice? Was she right to stand up to the woman who gave her life? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow this channel for more emotional and thought-provoking family stories. I used to think I was just an extra in my own family. Not because anyone said it out loud, but because of their silence. Every holiday felt like a performance I was never allowed to be part of. All the lights were on my younger sister Madison while I stayed behind the curtain, holding the props. Once, I tried to step forward, and Mom said only one thing. Don't ruin your sister's moment. I'm Alice, the eldest daughter of a middle-class family in Missouri. Or more accurately, the forgotten one. My parents always claimed they loved us both equally, but anyone who stepped into that house would see the truth was far from that. Madison was the little princess, Mom's favorite nickname, even when she was already 16. That Christmas, she got a brand new iPad, complete with a custom case and a handwritten card from our parents. To the most deserving girl in the world. And me? I got an oversized hoodie, 70% off from Target, in a dull winter gray, still marked final clearance. I was 14 and already knew the difference between love and pity. I didn't dare ask why. Because every time I did, the answers were always the same. You're older, you should know to give in. You don't need things like that. Mom's really trying, Alice. When I turned 16, my parents threw Madison a huge birthday party, poolside bash, 2-tiered cake, even a hired DJ. I was assigned to take photos. I spent the whole night behind the camera, watching her toss her hair in the lights, smiling brightly among her friends. And me? No photos, no cake. No one asked if I was having a good time. For my birthday a month later, Mom made a simple dinner at home, saying it was budget-friendly and cozy. A tiny store-bought cake. Just Mom, Dad, and Madison. Madison spent the evening scrolling on her phone. Dad ate, then left early to watch sports. Mom looked at me, smiled, and said, "This is good enough, right, sweetheart?" I nodded because I didn't know how to do anything else but accept the absence, not of money, but of care. When college came, the gap wasn't just a shadow anymore, it was clear as a bank statement. Madison was accepted into a private school in California. My parents paid for everything, tuition, housing, even a school tour trip worth nearly $8,000, 0 cents. Me? I sat at the kitchen table alone, filling out student loan applications. Dad said just one line. "You're going to school nearby, it won't cost much." I worked 3 jobs at once, part-time cashier at a bookstore, barista at a cafe, and teaching assistant. Just to afford a cramped room off campus. I'd come home with swollen feet and didn't dare complain. I knew the only thing I'd get from Mom was a cold stare and that same old phrase. "You, demanding things now?" When Madison graduated, my parents rented out a fancy banquet hall, made a tribute video, and spent nearly $20,000, 0 cents, celebrating the family's angel. Me? I got dinner at a local Italian place. Mom handed me a white envelope with a forced smile. "We don't have much, but I think you'll like this." I opened it. A $2, 0 cents lottery ticket. No card. No message. "Maybe it's a winner," Dad chuckled. I laughed too, not because it was funny, but because I was so empty inside. Laughter was the only thing filling the silence. That night, I sat alone in my rented room, dim yellow light casting over the unscratched ticket. I set it on the table like a joke, a symbol of my entire childhood. One shot at luck. Because no one ever thought I deserved more. I didn't scratch it that night. Didn't tuck it in my wallet or pin it to the mirror for hope. I just left it beneath an old book, somewhere between student paperwork and overdue bills. As if not seeing it would help me forget all the times I was made invisible. After graduation, I moved to Springfield, a small city over 3 hours away from home. Far enough to avoid surprise visits, but not far enough for them to say I'd cut ties. I rented a run-down 3rd-floor apartment, no elevator, leaking ceiling, and a gas leak in the kitchen that made cooking feel like a gamble with my life. No one came house hunting with me. No one helped me move. No hugs from mom, no good luck from dad. Just a short text from Madison. "Congrats, sis. Don't forget to send pics." I didn't reply. I dropped my single suitcase on the floor, opened the window for air, and told myself, from now on, everything's on me. I worked 2 jobs to survive: daytime communications assistant for a small local ad agency, and nighttime server at a dive bar, where the lights were dimmer than the staff and the music drowned out the sighs of tired regulars. Every night I got home around 2 a.m., feet aching, hands smelling like stale beer and sweat. No one knew, no one asked. Each time Madison posted vacation photos from Miami or flaunted her new designer bag, Mom would share the post with a proud caption, "My daughter deserves the best." I blocked her on Facebook. Not out of anger, but exhaustion. I started avoiding every family dinner invite where I'd just sit through long talks about Madison's new investment plans, or amazing job at that cosmetics firm Mom's friend recommended. I faded, like a ghost in my own story. But this time, I didn't feel sad. I was learning to exist, even without anyone beside me. Then one night, after a late shift, I was having drinks with some new friends at a bar near my apartment. Rick, co-worker at the ad agency, frowned as I paid with spare change. "Alice, you really work both jobs?" "Yeah, rent won't pay itself." He sighed, shook his head. "What about your family? They don't help?" I gave a tired smile. "They help Madison. I got a lottery ticket." Rick went quiet, eyes fixed on me. Then Tina, my roommate, jumped in. "You mean, your sister got a scholarship?" I shook my head. "No, my parents paid Madison's tuition, all of it." "And you?" "I have over $40,000 0 cents in student debt." The table went silent, heavy like lead. Someone muttered, "God, that's not favoritism, that's straight up cruelty." I didn't know how to respond. I just sat there, staring at my warm beer. That sentence pierced me like a knife. Not because it was wrong, but because it was so true it stole my breath. I'd been abandoned for so long, I didn't even realize I was still bleeding. I used to think sacrifice was noble, that being the big sister meant giving everything up. But now, hearing someone say, "You deserve better," I saw my childhood for what it really was. A series of forced silences, wrapped in cheap moral lessons. That night, I went home and opened my old drawer. The lottery ticket was still there. A tiny slip of paper with its silver coat untouched. I looked at it like I was looking at myself, left on the sidelines, waiting for a miracle that would never come. I didn't cry. I just sighed. Then I pulled out a blank sheet of paper and wrote 3 lines. "I'm no longer Madison's sister. I'm Alice. And I will succeed." 3 months after the night I wrote those 3 lines of commitment on a blank sheet of paper, life hadn't improved much. I was still walking to work at 6 in the morning, still wearing a grease-stained apron after 7 at night, and still quietly living in a rundown apartment where even rats avoided the collapsed floorboards. But at least, I had stopped making excuses for my family's indifference. It was a Saturday morning. I was cleaning the kitchen after nearly a week of neglect. Beneath a pile of flyers, can lids, and scattered bills was the random junk drawer. A catch-all for everything nameless: broken cables, dead batteries, dried-out pens, a frayed headband, and the lottery ticket. I picked it up. The edges were crumpled, the silver scratch-off coating still intact. The only thing I had received from my parents after graduation. A gift no one believed had value, not even me. I laughed. "To hell with it, let's give it one last try," I muttered. I grabbed my phone and opened the Missouri State Lottery website. On the back of the ticket was the number sequence: 04, -11, -26, -39, -44, 52. I entered each number, my hands trembling not from nerves but from lack of sleep. Clicked check result. The screen spun for less than 3 seconds. Congratulations, jackpot winner $137 million, 0 cents. I stood frozen. No blinking, no breathing. I looked at the screen, then the ticket, then the screen again, over and over like a sleepwalker. I slapped my own cheek lightly. It didn't hurt. My eyes stayed open. It was real. $137 million. A $2 ticket. A just for fun moment. A joke from my family that now broke everything wide open. I vomited into the sink. What followed was a series of bizarre actions. I washed my hands, changed shirts, then slid the ticket into my passport sleeve, placed it under my pillow, and stared at it for 4 hours straight without doing anything else. I didn't call my mom. I didn't tell Madison. I didn't post a thing on social media. I called Google. First search: what to do if you win the lottery in Missouri. Then, how to claim winnings without your family finding out. Then, how to avoid going broke after winning the lottery. Every result said the same things. Keep it secret. Find a financial advisor. Create a legal entity. Don't spend anything right away. Trust no one. I started looking up certified financial advisors in Missouri. The standout name was Carol Bryant, a 56-year-old expert with over 20 years of experience, known for being tighter-lipped than a submarine. Her profile photo showed a silver-haired woman wearing tortoiseshell glasses and a forest green blazer. When I looked into her eyes, I felt something I'd never felt with my mother. Safety. I scheduled a meeting with her for the following Tuesday morning under the name Alice R., inquiring about unexpected inheritance. She smiled as I spoke and just nodded. We'll keep everything under the radar, no worries. That first meeting at Carol's office felt like stepping into another world. Cherrywood furnishings, an automatic espresso machine, carpet so thick you couldn't hear footsteps. I felt like an intruder in a rich person's life. Even though, on paper, I'd just become one of them. Carol listened as I told her the whole story. The lottery ticket in the white envelope, the beer I couldn't finish when my friend said this is just unfair. She never interrupted. When I finished, she said one sentence. They underestimated the card they misplayed. And then, over the next 3 weeks, Carol helped me set up a limited liability company to claim the winnings. Open 3 separate bank accounts at 3 different banks, none of which held the full amount. Arrange for legal and tax consultation. Build a conservative investment plan. Real estate, government bonds, and blue-chip stocks. When I officially received the money, after taxes, nearly $89 million, I walked out of the lottery claims office wearing my old hoodie and faded jeans. No press, no cameras. No one knew my real name. And that felt amazing. That night, I sat on the floor of my crumbling apartment, lit only by a desk lamp with a loose wire, holding a can of soda and whispering, "This is the last time you'll live like this." The lottery ticket, once a joke, was now a weapon, not for revenge, but for liberation. No messages for Madison. No phone calls to my mom. I even blocked my dad's number, the same man who told me at 13. Girls don't need to be smart as long as they marry rich. I bought a safe and placed the original ticket inside. Every time I looked at it, I reminded myself of one thing. I wasn't lucky. I was the lesson they never saw coming. The morning I made the final payment on my student loan, $42,570. My hands trembled even as I pressed one simple button. The moment the screen displayed paid in full, I exhaled like I'd just set down the entire weight of my childhood. 3 hours later I went to the diner, where I'd poured sweat, tears and dignity for the past 2 years, to quit. Linda, the nearly 60-year-old owner with bleached hair and a voice that sounded like it had been sanded by a storm, looked at me suspiciously. "You win the lottery or something?" I smiled faintly. "No, but enough to never put up with this again." I turned in my uniform, handed over my resignation, and tucked a white envelope with $5,000 in cash inside. She opened it, eyes wide. What the hell is this? Because you once covered my shift when I passed out in the kitchen? And because no one else in my life has ever done anything that kind. I walked out the same back door that had once been my only escape route at night, and for the first time, the Springfield sky looked impossibly blue. I bought a black Tesla Model 3, sleek, discreet, but still a head-turner if I wanted it to be. I didn't. I drove straight to the dealership, paid by bank transfer, said nothing. No selfies with the keys, no Facebook check-ins, no "Look, Mom, I made it." Because she never really looked at me, anyway. I found the house after 3 weeks of circling the western suburbs, about 2 blocks away from Madison's neighborhood. A 2-story modern home, white with gray trim, lavender flowers in the front yard and a small garden out back where tomatoes were starting to grow. Listing price, $1,350,000. I paid $1,400,000, no haggling. No one knew I was the buyer. Everything was under the name of the LLC I had set up under Carol's guidance. Even the realtor only knew me as the CEO of an advertising company based out of state. I didn't throw a housewarming party. Didn't hang a nameplate. The neighbors only knew me as the quiet girl who took evening walks, always had a spotless car, and gave a hand wave of thanks whenever someone let me pass. And I liked it that way. Every morning I made coffee from the automatic machine I once thought was a luxury, and stood by the large glass window, watching the sunlight spill into the living room. The kitchen was no longer a smoke trap, it became the space of fluffy omelets, crispy pastries, and the soft scent of cinnamon. I still worked, but not because I had to, I chose to. I took on a few freelance media projects, crafting campaigns for small businesses on digital platforms. No pressure, no boss, no deadlines tight enough to steal my sleep. Madison texted twice in 3 months. "Are you still living in that old apartment?" I didn't respond. Mom called once in the middle of the night. The number showed up as "press record." I picked up. "Alice, are you okay?" I hung up before she could say another word. I didn't hold a grudge. But I had erased my name from the list of people allowed to be hurt. Once, I drove past Madison's house and saw Mom watering the flowers. My heart pinched. Not because I missed them, but because a small part of me still wished, hopelessly, that they had once paused for a second to think I was worthy of love too. I pulled over, turned off the engine and watched from a distance. Madison stepped out. Soft curls, long white dress and Chanel heels. She and Mom were laughing, unaware of the black Tesla parked 4 houses down. I smiled faintly, then restarted the engine and drove away. The house I bought. Bigger, nicer, quieter, but no one needed to know. It wasn't revenge, it was rebirth. I lived in intentional silence. No one invited me to family meetings. No one asked, "How's Alice doing lately?" But when I walked into the bathroom each morning and looked in the mirror, I no longer avoided my own gaze. One day Carol called. "Feel like traveling? I know someone in Italy." I laughed. I'm already on the biggest trip of my life, living a life that's finally mine. Perfect. Just remember, don't let the past knock while you're sipping wine. I still kept the lottery ticket in the safe. Not because of the money, but because it was the only proof I'd ever had of something no one else had acknowledged. I wasn't an accident of fate. I was the one who rewrote the game they thought was set in stone. I shouldn't have stopped at that cafe. One sunny Sunday afternoon, I drove out of the neighborhood looking for a quiet place to work. Hoodie pulled up, sunglasses on, no makeup. I looked like any other office girl chasing peace in a noisy city. I parked on a corner, the sleek black Tesla standing out among old sedans. The moment I stepped out, I heard a voice. "Alice." I turned. It was Ben Harris, a high school classmate. He used to lend me pens in math class and almost asked me to prom if Madison hadn't stepped in first. Ben looked at me, then at the car. His mouth opened and closed like he was trying to process data his brain couldn't compute fast enough. "Wow, long time no see. Your sister said you were still working at the diner?" I nodded slightly, offered a polite smile. Took a different turn lately. Ben glanced at the car again. His eyes betrayed his curiosity. I could tell he was mentally calculating its market value. Not because he cared. Because he'd be telling someone else. 3 hours later, I got my first message. From Madison. Still driving that old car? Someone said you were seen in a Tesla? I didn't reply. An hour later, Mom called. Missed calls. Mom. 3 times. I turned off my phone. The next day I turned it back on. A flood of messages poured in like a summer storm. Alice, honey, we'd love to see you. It's been so long since we had dinner together. Sweetheart, did you move without telling us? Is that Tesla really yours? Madison said someone saw you on the west side of Springfield. Your dad and I are worried about you, you know that. Can we meet? No one ever cared what I was eating. No one asked how much debt I was in. But now they cared. Not because I was doing well, but because I had escaped their grip, without asking permission. I turned off all notifications, but they didn't stop. 3 days later, I received a text from an unknown number. Hey sis. Mom's blood pressure dropped yesterday. Don't stay silent anymore. I checked the number. Madison. Attached was a photo of Mom lying on the sofa, hand to her forehead, like a scene out of a low-budget soap opera. No IV. No doctor. But one thing stood out. On the coffee table behind her, a stack of cream-colored paper that read, Plans for the future. I knew exactly what she was doing. They were meeting, plotting, redrawing the family map. With me at the center this time. Not out of love, but out of financial interest. I scrolled back to the oldest text from Mom, dated a year and a half ago. It read, Madison needs to pay tuition, urgently, can you help? I had sent the money. They never texted back to say thank you. I gave a cold laugh, not because I was sad, but because I was done. That night, I sat on the balcony, the city lights glowing through the glass, a glass of white wine in hand. My phone buzzed again and again. I set it face down on the table, letting it vibrate like ants crawling over a dead thing. I didn't need another word to know what was happening. My family had smelled the money. And now they were coming dressed as concerned, waving the blood ties banner, hoping I'd return to my old role, the bill payer, the burden bearer, the invisible one. But I wasn't there anymore. 3 days later I received a dinner invitation from Madison's house. Ivory envelope. Familiar slanted handwriting. Mom's. Sunday 7 p.m. The family misses you. I placed the letter on the gas stove, lit a flame and watched it burn slowly. Like a farewell ritual. No one in that house had ever asked me, are you okay? Now they were asking, what do you have? I didn't owe them an explanation. But they owed me an entire childhood. I went to that dinner for one reason only. I wanted to hear them lie to my face. Madison's house was in the new neighborhood on the south side of Springfield. The kind of place for people who cared more about appearances than reality. The freshly polished oak door, the gold-plated nameplate etched with the Rowans, made it look like they'd just won a statewide Model Family Award. I parked far down the street and walked in like a stranger, holding a bottle of red wine. Just expensive enough to not be rude, but not classy enough to be mistaken for an apology. Mom opened the door with a smile, as if she hadn't ignored me for the past year. Alice, look at you. You're beautiful. Come in, sweetheart. I nodded. No hug. No one hugs the person they've erased from memory. The living room smelled of pine and the fake sweetness of cheap scented candles. My dad was watching the news, and Madison appeared from the kitchen in a tight dress and earrings bigger than the reason she'd invited me back. You made it. I was just telling everyone how you've been living nearby and keeping it a secret. So mysterious. I smiled faintly. No one ever asked. We sat at the table. The main course was grilled meat, the dish my dad once banned me from eating because it's not ladylike. But tonight he offered it to me first like it was some kind of divine revelation. Dinner passed with hollow conversation. Madison's getting married. They just installed a new oven. Mom's thinking about planting lavender. Dad's considering early retirement if the investments go well. No one mentioned the real reason I was there. Until Madison tapped her wine glass and smiled like a pageant queen on coronation night. Actually, Mom and I have an idea we wanted to share. Mom folded her hands and nodded like she was hosting a shareholders meeting. You know, Madison's wedding is going to be very special. We're planning it in Charleston, right on the beach, with over 100 guests. It'll be amazing. Madison chimed in. And we also want to expand the house, a guest room, a small yoga studio, and a nursery for the future. Dad added with a light cough. Everyone was thinking, if you could help a little financially, it would mean a lot. I sat there, set my knife down on the plate, and dabbed my mouth with a napkin, as if I were auditioning and this was the final scene I needed to get through. How much exactly? I asked, voice neutral, like discussing the cost of printing flyers. Mom glanced at Madison, then back at me. About $120,000, sweetheart, for the house and the wedding? If you could just cover that part, we'll handle the rest. I gave a slight nod. Well, think about it. The entire table seemed to exhale. Madison beamed and placed her hand on mine. I knew you'd understand. We're family. I pulled my hand away. Right. Family. I stood, poured another glass of wine, then turned back to the table, looking at each of them. No one spoke. No one even breathed too hard. And I began. What is family, Mom, when Madison gets a pool party for her birthday and I get a grocery store cake? When she goes to college with everything paid and I sign student loans alone? Dad grimaced. That's old stuff, Alice. Don't dig it up. I didn't look at him. What about the lottery ticket? Not a joke, Mom. A real $2 ticket. While she got a $40,000 graduation party and a new car. Madison's cheeks flushed. You're being dramatic. I laughed. No, I'm just getting started. I stood, pushed my chair in, and looked straight into Mom's eyes. The woman who once taught me that a woman should know her place. I'm not an ATM, not a backup plan, and I'm definitely not the shadow everyone calls only when they need something. I pulled out my wallet, unfolded a piece of paper, and placed it on the table. Here's a reminder. I don't owe anyone at this table anything. Mom picked it up and opened it. It was a photocopy of my first-year tuition bill, stamped in bold red letters. Paid in full. I did that. On my own. No one here helped. And I don't need another hand reaching out. I need someone who stands with me. But clearly I won't find that here. I turned to leave. Madison called after me. You're the most selfish person I've ever met. I looked back and smiled. And you're the one who lives off other people's kindness without a hint of shame. The door clicked shut behind me with a metallic finality, as cold and certain as the decision I had just made. Driving home, I didn't play music. Didn't check my phone. I just listened to the sound of the tires on the road. The sound of freedom. This time, I didn't say, I'll think about it. I had already decided. That night, as soon as I got home, I placed my phone on the kitchen counter, opened my contacts, and blocked every familiar name. Mom, Dad, Madison. I didn't cry, I didn't hesitate. Only one phrase echoed clearly in my mind. Enough. I removed myself from the family group chat on Facebook, deleted old photo albums from Google Drive, wiped away every trace of the Alice who once lived for praise from people who had never truly seen her. Inside the small safe, where I once kept the lottery ticket, I replaced it with a new handwritten note in black ink. Freedom is not something you're given, it's something you take. The next day, I sent one final email to Carol. I want to expand my investment portfolio, prioritize sustainable real estate and green stocks. I don't want to be richer, I want to be stronger. She replied that same day. I'll build it like a fortress. I transferred a portion of my funds into long-term investments, real estate in Oregon, a small stake in a regenerative farming company in Colorado, and an education grant for girls in communities of color, signed under the name AR Foundation, with no need for anyone to know who was behind it. I booked a trip to Italy, not to show off, but because I wanted to feel something not tied to debt or duty. I sat on the patio of a cafe in Florence, eating gelato while the wind blew off the Arno River, and I found myself smiling. Not for anyone, not for anything, just because I was breathing. Then, I went to New Orleans and danced at a jazz festival in the rain. No one recognized me. No one asked where I was from. A middle-aged man invited me to dance. I nodded. We spun through the soaked crowd, the music pounding as wildly as my heart beating for the first time in years. I didn't splurge. Didn't buy a mansion. Didn't throw money at designer handbags or sports cars. I lived just enough. A warm home, a personal library with wooden floors and soft yellow lights, a kitchen I actually loved cooking in, and a porch wide enough to write on during autumn afternoons. Each morning I woke up without hearing Mom's nagging. No texts from Madison asking for a quick loan, no one telling me I needed to be more understanding. I brewed coffee, played soft jazz, and began the day my own way. Sometimes I still got texts from unknown numbers. Are you doing okay? I'm sorry if I ever made you feel hurt. Madison's about to have her baby. Would you want to visit? I didn't read them all. I didn't block them either. I left them in the spam folder, as a reminder that I no longer lived to comfort others with my silence. I no longer resented, no longer needed recognition, no longer craved a sorry or a you matter too. I gave value to myself, like a medal that needs no audience. Each week, I wrote one journal line. One week it was. I said no to a party they only invited me to because I could afford it. And not today, I finished planting my first row of vegetables. The smell of soil made me feel more real than I've ever felt. I enrolled in an art class, joined a small book club at the local library. A woman named Clara, 65 years old, invited me to dinner after one of the meetings. She talked about her ex-husband, about years of being pushed aside in her own family. I didn't say much, but when I got home, I wrote in my notebook. I'm not alone. I'm just refining my world. One spring evening, with a breeze whispering over the porch, I sat alone with my newly learned ukulele. I strummed a few simple chords, then hummed an old tune I once heard in Dad's car. I didn't smile either. I just lived, on my terms and no one else's. I didn't expect to run into Jason at the downtown cafe. It was a Friday afternoon, crisp and blue-skied. The kind of weather that made people want to sit outdoors with something warm in their hands. I had just pulled my laptop from my bag when a familiar, sarcastic voice came from behind me. Alice, is that really you? You look different. I turned around. Jason stood there, light blue shirt, sleeves rolled up, hair neatly styled, polished leather shoes that looked straight out of a brand shoot. But his eyes no longer held that smug confidence. Instead, there was something else. Irritation, laced with doubt. I smiled, raised my cappuccino calmly, like we were strangers reunited after a silent retreat. Hello, Jason, long time. He sat across from me without asking, without invitation. That same familiar boldness. The habit of stepping into people's lives like it was his right. I heard you're living on the west side now, driving a Tesla? Someone even said you bought a house near us. I nodded. I didn't confirm or deny. I took a sip of coffee and placed the cup down as a minimum courtesy. You've gone really quiet, Jason continued, like you dropped off the family radar. I smiled softly, rested my hand on the table. I didn't disappear. I just stopped knocking on doors that were never going to open for me. Jason raised an eyebrow, offered a strained smile. Blunt as ever. So, what are you doing now? Or, are you just living off your lottery win? I looked him in the eye. It wasn't curiosity. It was a jab. A crooked hook wrapped in polite phrasing. Maybe I did win the lottery, I said slowly, clearly. But everything after that, every cent, every step, I built myself. Jason leaned back, exhaled. Still feels unfair. You got lucky. Meanwhile, I'm juggling wedding debt, house repairs, and Amanda wanting to quit her job to launch a brand. You had parents, I interrupted. You had your own graduation party, a brand new car at 16, your tuition paid, a house in your name right out of college, a fully funded wedding, and I had a cheap lottery ticket. Jason blushed, his voice breaking. But I have to keep it all going. You just had to scratch a ticket and became a millionaire. That's way too easy. I lowered my head, pressed my lips together, then looked at him one last time, as if gazing at a portrait whose lines had already faded. You're right, I scratched a ticket and got money, but you've spent your life scratching others down, and still ended up with nothing truly your own. He didn't respond. He just sat there, eyes no longer searching for an answer. Just the vacant look of someone who finally realized he's sinking, and no one's coming to pull him out. I stood, picked up my handbag. Jason, I don't need your approval. I don't need anyone in the family to look at me and nod saying she really tried. I just need to live a life where, when I close my eyes, I know I'm no longer being controlled by anyone. I turned and walked slowly toward the glass doors. He called after me, his voice quieter but still carrying the sulky tone of a child who just lost his toy. Alice, you don't have to act like this. I stopped, tilted my head. I'm not acting. I'm living, for real. Unlike many others. That evening, I returned home, opened the wide window, and looked into the distance, where city lights met the fading dusk like a soft painting. I brewed a hot espresso and stepped out onto the balcony. The breeze flowed gently through the curtains, mixing the scent of coffee with the woody smell of the custom teak table I had made. I sat in the armchair, legs crossed, hand wrapped around a dark ceramic cup. In that moment, I knew I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Jason. Not at Mom. Not at the past. I no longer lived for the longing to be heard. I no longer needed a fake reunion. I didn't need Jason to understand. I didn't need Mom to apologize. I needed one thing only: to be myself, without being controlled, without having to prove anything, without being someone else's backdrop. The sun sank slowly below the horizon. I closed my eyes. The warmth from the coffee cup spread through my fingers. And I smiled. Alice's story is a powerful reminder that no one needs a family's permission to be worthy. We may not be born into fairness, but we can choose how we live after that. When Alice let go of her need to be acknowledged by those who had always dismissed her, she found the most precious thing of all: freedom and peace within herself. Sometimes, the only thing we need to do isn't to seek love from others, but to learn how to love ourselves first. What do you think about Alice's journey? Was she too harsh? Or was this the only way to truly live? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more emotional stories about family life. I was staring at my computer screen, trying to finish the quarterly report when my phone unexpectedly rang. Ellie, my 24-year-old youngest sister, spoke with excitement in her voice. Do you have a minute? I want to talk about something. I pushed aside a stack of papers, my hands still typing. Yeah, I'm here, what's up? Ellie continued, her tone full of enthusiasm. You know Mom's 55th birthday is next month, right? We're planning something really special. I paused, shifting my full attention to the call. What do you mean? I asked, curious about what they were preparing. Ellie lowered her voice a bit, as if to create suspense. We've decided to organize a getaway at Blue Ridge Resort. Everyone agrees Mom deserves a truly memorable trip. Hearing that, I thought the plan sounded great. Our mom had always cared for the family and rarely took time for herself. But Ellie quickly added, we need everyone to chip in for the costs. What do you think? I cautiously asked. How much are we talking about? When Ellie named the amount, I nearly dropped my coffee cup. The figure was higher than what I had spent on my last summer vacation 2 years ago. I know it's a lot, Ellie quickly added as if anticipating my reaction, but I think it's worth it for Mom. I held the phone, sighed and nodded in agreement. All right, I'll transfer the money now. Ellie cheered excitedly. That's great. Oh, one more thing, make sure to keep the whole week free. Don't plan anything else, okay? I frowned slightly, feeling like everything was moving a bit fast, but I agreed. The following week, I was swamped with work and meetings, leaving me little time to think about Ellie's plan. Every time I asked for details, Ellie would just smile and say, "Everything's being taken care of, you don't need to worry." I didn't think much of it, assuming they had everything under control. Time flew by, and Mom's birthday was quickly approaching. On a Saturday evening, our whole family gathered at my parents' house for dinner. The atmosphere was lively, filled with laughter and chatter. While we were eating, Ellie suddenly looked at me, smiled and said, "We've finalized all the plans for Mom's birthday. Next week, we're all going to Blue Ridge Resort." Mom beamed with joy, and Dad had already started talking about the outdoor activities he wanted to try. But when I asked about my role in the plans, things took an unexpected turn. I sat silently in my chair, staring at Ellie, hoping my youngest sister would laugh and say this was just a joke, but everyone at the table remained strangely quiet, as if waiting for me to agree. Finally, Ellie broke the tension with a sickly sweet voice. "You know, Mary and Jack, Jessica's kids love spending time with you. And with Mike's 3 kids added in, they'll definitely have a great time being with their amazing Aunt Jillian." I frowned, my voice catching in my throat. "Wait, what do you mean, you want me to watch all 5 kids?" My mom immediately interjected, her tone gentle, as if trying to soothe me. "It's just for 1 week, Jillian. You know your father and I aren't able to keep up with the little ones anymore, and your siblings could really use a break. You're so great with the kids and they love you." Her words felt like a knife piercing my heart. She didn't even ask if I wanted to do it, they had already decided for me. I turned to Ellie, trying to keep my composure. "So, everyone already knows about this? I contributed money, took a week off work, and now you expect me to stay behind and watch 5 kids while everyone else enjoys the vacation?" Jessica stared down at her plate, avoiding eye contact. Ellie, however, tilted her head nonchalantly, as if this was no big deal. "You understand, don't you, Jillian? You don't have a family or kids to worry about. Besides, you don't really enjoy loud places like resorts, so this is the best arrangement for everyone." My heart felt like it was being squeezed. Those words echoed in my head, over and over. You don't have a family or kids to worry about. They had planned everything without asking me, without caring about how I might feel, treating me as nothing more than an easy solution. After all the years I had sacrificed to support this family, this was my reward? I was nothing more than a sidelined figure, someone they thought would always agree, no matter how unfair the situation. I stood up, my voice shaking but filled with determination. "If that's what you've decided, then I won't stay. I've already given too much of my time and money to this family, but I won't do it without even a shred of respect. I wanted to be part of Mom's vacation, but if that's not possible, then I'm not your babysitter either." I turned and walked away, leaving their stunned faces behind. My heart ached, but I knew this was the first time I had ever put myself above them. I spent the entire night tossing and turning, thinking about what Ellie and Mom had said. The feeling of being undervalued, of being seen as just a convenient solution, left me both angry and hurt. The next morning, after calming down, I decided to try a different approach. One that was reasonable and fair. I picked up the phone and called Mom. She answered on the 3rd ring, her tone sounding as though she already knew what I was about to say. "Jillian, I know you'll understand. You've always been the most considerate one in the family." I tried to keep my voice steady. "Mom, I've thought this through carefully. I want to suggest a solution. I'll hire a professional nanny to take care of the kids for the week. This person will be experienced, fully vetted, and I'll cover all the costs. That way, I can also join the vacation without anyone having to worry." There was a brief silence on the other end before Mom's voice returned, suddenly cold. "No, Jillian, I can't trust a stranger with my grandchildren. The kids need someone they're familiar with, and you're the best person for the job. This idea of yours is completely irresponsible." I felt like a bucket of cold water had been thrown over me. "Irresponsible?" I repeated, trying to keep calm. I'm trying to find a solution that works for everyone, including me. Why is it such a problem for me to want to be part of your celebration? Mom let out a heavy sigh, as though she were dealing with a child who just didn't understand. Jillian, you know the family needs you. Ellie and Jessica have their own responsibilities, they have kids and families to take care of. But you only have yourself. And the kids adore you. This isn't a big deal. Just 1 week. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with another call. It was Ellie. Reluctantly, I switched over, but before I could say a word, her sharp voice cut through. What are you doing? Mom just told me about the nanny idea. Are you trying to ruin everything? When did you become so selfish? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Ellie, I'm just trying to find a way for me to also enjoy the vacation. I've already contributed money, taken time off work, and now I just want to spend time with the family, like everyone else. What's so wrong about that? Don't you get it? Ellie snapped. We've planned everything already. We need you to watch the kids. This is the best solution for everyone. You always make things harder. Her words cut deep, like knives. Harder, I repeated, my voice trembling slightly. Ellie, you and Jessica planned this without ever consulting me. You decided my role for me, and now you're calling me selfish? Ellie lowered her voice but kept her accusatory tone. We just thought you understood how important family is. If you keep acting like this, don't expect forgiveness from anyone. I put the phone down, my hands shaking. I had always given my all for them. But now, I was the one being labeled selfish. Tears streamed down my face, not from sadness, but from anger. For the first time in my life, I realized I could no longer bear this unfairness. After days of enduring criticism and manipulation from my family, I realized I couldn't keep going like this. The feeling of being exploited and disregarded had become too clear, and I knew that if I gave in this time, they would never change how they treated me. I decided to do something I never thought I could. Put myself first. That evening, I opened my laptop and started searching for a place far away, somewhere I could escape the pressure my family had been putting on me. After some time, I stopped on a small beach resort in Florida. The images of white sandy beaches, swaying palm trees, and gentle waves lapping at the shore brought me a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Without hesitation, I booked a coach flight and a hotel room with a balcony overlooking the ocean. I didn't need a luxurious vacation. Just a place where I could breathe and rediscover myself. The next morning I packed my bags, bringing light clothing and my favorite book. Things I never had the time to enjoy while constantly fulfilling my family's endless demands. I didn't tell anyone, didn't explain, and didn't try to justify my decision. My phone kept buzzing with calls from Mom, Ellie, and even extended family members, but I ignored them. By now, I knew I didn't owe them any answers. When the plane landed in Florida, a wave of relief washed over me. Free from the criticism and expectations, I stepped out of the airport and took a deep breath of the salty sea air. The peaceful scenery and warm sunlight felt like a balm for my soul. The hotel was small but cozy, with a balcony offering a perfect view of the ocean. I spent my first afternoon sitting there, watching the sun paint the horizon in shades of red. Finally feeling free, for the first time in years. In the days that followed, I cherished every little moment I had previously denied myself. I walked along the beach, letting the warm sand slip between my toes. I spent hours at a small roadside cafe, reading my book and savoring every sip of coffee without rushing. I even signed up for a beach yoga session, something I had always thought I didn't have time. On my last evening in Florida, I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine, gazing at the sparkling stars overhead. I no longer felt guilty or worried about what my family might think. I realized that this was the life I had been missing, a life where I had the right to choose what made me happy. And this time I was certain. I would never go back to being anyone's convenient solution again. Diana added, "And your past." While I was enjoying my peaceful days in Florida, my phone kept buzzing with messages and calls from my family. At first I ignored them, but curiosity eventually got the better of me. The first messages were from Ellie. "Jillian, where are you? We're standing outside your house with the kids, open the door." Then Jessica chimed in. "Jillian, the kids are asking for you. You can't just disappear like this." I read through the messages, imagining them standing outside my empty house, confused because I wasn't where they assumed I would be. Soon, the tone of the messages shifted to anger. Ellie wrote, "You seriously don't care about the family. How could you abandon the kids like this? You're unbelievably selfish." Jessica joined in. "We trusted you and you've betrayed the family. Mama's been crying all morning because of you." These messages only made me feel lighter. I had always borne the brunt of their unfair expectations. But this time, I didn't feel guilty. Instead, I felt like I was finally doing the right thing. The next day, I received several missed calls from Mom. When I finally answered, her voice was full of anger. "Jillian, what have you done? The kids are confused. Ellie had to stay home with them instead of joining the vacation, and everyone is criticizing you. Don't you feel ashamed?" I took a deep breath, keeping my voice calm. "Mom, I've made it very clear I want to be part of your vacation, not stay behind as a babysitter. If no one respects my decision, that's not my fault." Mom paused, seemingly shocked by my words. Then her voice turned cold. "If you can't understand that family must come first, then you are not the daughter I raised." I stayed silent, not responding. Her words no longer had the power to hurt me as they once did. I knew I had changed. When I returned from my vacation, I still felt the lingering sense of freedom. But as soon as I stepped into my house, there was a loud, relentless knocking at the door. Ellie and Mom stormed in, their faces filled with anger. "You're so selfish, Jillian," Ellie yelled. "We had to take on all the responsibility because of you." Mom added, "The entire family is disappointed in you. You've ruined everything just because you refused to help." I looked at them, feeling an unusual calm. "You've always made decisions for me without asking for my input," I said. "You planned everything and treated me as a resource, not a person. If you're upset because I didn't agree, maybe it's time you reflect on how you've treated me all these years." Both Ellie and Mom fell silent, as though they had no response. For the first time in my life, I no longer felt bound by their expectations. No matter how much they called me selfish or irresponsible, I knew I had done the right thing for myself. I had learned that true family love isn't about unconditional sacrifice, but mutual respect. Something they had never given me. When I returned home from Florida, I knew I couldn't avoid facing my family. And as I had expected, they didn't take long to show up. Just a few hours after I arrived, there was a loud, relentless knocking at the door. I opened it to find Mom, Ellie, and Jessica standing there, their faces filled with anger. Before I could say anything, Ellie stormed in, pointing a finger at me. "Jillian, what is wrong with you? Do you have any idea how much we've had to deal with because of you? You're so selfish." I closed the door, took a deep breath, and tried to stay calm. "Ellie, I'm not selfish," I replied, my voice steady but firm. "I'm simply refusing to let myself be taken advantage of anymore." Jessica, who rarely showed much emotion, couldn't hide her frustration either. "Taken advantage of? Jillian, you're the one who ruined Mom's vacation. You let the kids down, you let the whole family down. Don't you feel ashamed?" I felt my chest tighten with anger, but instead of letting it consume me, I kept my tone measured. "Jessica, I didn't ruin the vacation. You all ruined it when you decided not to respect my opinions or my wishes. You assumed I would take care of the kids, use my money, and give up my time without even asking. Did anyone ever think about how I might feel?" Mom cut in, her voice cold and sharp. "Jillian, I can't believe you would behave this way. Family comes first, but it seems you've forgotten that. I raised you to think about others, but right now, I'm so disappointed in you." I looked at Mom, feeling my heart break, but for the first time, I didn't let guilt take over. "Mom, I've spent my entire life thinking about others, sacrificing for this family. But that doesn't mean I don't have the right to think about myself. I've always done everything everyone asked of me, but no one has ever asked what I wanted. This isn't about family. It's about respect. Something you and everyone else have never given me." Ellie shook her head, her voice growing sharper. You're acting like we don't appreciate you, but this is family. You're supposed to help. This isn't about respect, it's about responsibility. I let out a soft laugh, not of satisfaction but of liberation. Ellie, helping is a choice, not a responsibility. And if this family truly valued me, you wouldn't force me to do things I don't agree with. The tension in the room grew thicker. But I didn't feel fear or regret. I had said everything I needed to say, and now I knew I had done the right thing. They could keep blaming me, keep being disappointed, but I had found the strength to stand up for myself. For the first time, I felt free. Jessica let out a heavy sigh, folding her arms across her chest, her eyes filled with disappointment as she looked at me. Jillian, don't you see? This is your family. We've always been there for each other, always helped one another, but now you're only thinking about yourself, and that's just selfish. I looked her straight in the eyes, my voice calm but firm. Jessica, you're right. Family is about helping each other. But that has to come from respect and understanding, not from obligation or being taken advantage of. I've helped everyone for so many years, but when I needed understanding, no one listened. This isn't a family that supports each other. This is a family that demands and imposes. In order to threaten the world? Anna told her sister. Ellie jumped in, her voice rising as if she couldn't accept what I was saying. You're acting like we've treated you poorly, but the truth is, you've always been willing to help, and now you're turning your back on everyone over this one small thing. You're just making yourself out to be the victim. Jillian. I frowned, feeling a surge of anger rise in my chest. Ellie, do you have any idea how many times I've sacrificed important things for myself to help everyone else? How many times I've canceled my own plans, given up my time and energy, just to support this family? And now, when I simply want to join this vacation as a normal member of the family, I get criticized and called selfish. Do you think that's fair? My mom stepped forward, placing her hand on the table, trying to regain control of the situation. Jillian, if you feel hurt, I'm sorry, but I still think you've overreacted. All I wanted was for this vacation to go smoothly, and now it's become a mess because of your stubbornness. I shook my head looking at her, and for the first time in my life, her words didn't make me waver. Mom, this vacation became a mess not because of me, but because no one asked for my input from the start. No one respected me or saw me as an equal. I've always tried to fulfill my role, but that doesn't mean I don't have the right to say no when something isn't fair. Ellie and Jessica started to speak again, but I raised my hand to stop them. I'm not going to argue anymore. I've made my feelings and my perspective clear. If you can't accept that, then that's your problem, not mine. The room fell silent, no one knowing what else to say. Mom, Ellie, and Jessica looked at me as if they couldn't recognize the sister and daughter they thought they knew. But I didn't waver. This wasn't just about standing up for myself. It was a declaration that I would no longer be someone they could easily take advantage of. I turned and walked toward the door, leaving them to sit with their own thoughts. This time I had chosen my own path. A path of freedom and self-respect. After the tense confrontation with Mom, Ellie, and Jessica, I realized I no longer had any reason to hold on to a relationship that had always made me feel exploited. For the first time in my life, I decided to cut ties with my family. No explanations, no goodbyes. I left the family group chat, blocked the numbers that constantly sent me accusatory messages, and turned off social media. At first, the silence felt strange, like an unfamiliar void. But gradually I realized it wasn't loneliness. It was freedom. I began spending time exploring hobbies I had neglected for so long. One Saturday morning, instead of being busy in the kitchen preparing meals for the kids, I walked into a small bookstore near my home. I came across a sign that read, "Book Club, 4th Thursday of every month." Without much thought, I signed up. It was a small decision, but it opened a big door in my life. During those book club meetings, I not only got to share my favorite books, but also met new friends. People who didn't demand or expect anything from me. Beyond reading, I started planning trips I had never dared to consider before. I found a short getaway to Charleston, South Carolina, a place known for its historic homes and outdoor markets. I booked the tickets myself, created my own itinerary, and didn't need to ask for anyone's approval or wait for their agreement. That first trip made me realize one important thing: life doesn't have to revolve around pleasing others. Strolling through the cobblestone streets of Charleston in the mornings, I felt a true sense of peace. There were no criticisms, no pressure to meet anyone's expectations. I basked in the warm air, admired the oak trees draped with Spanish moss, and enjoyed a hot cup of coffee by the river. For the first time in years, I felt like my life truly belonged to me. When I returned from the trip, I continued expanding my world. I joined an evening painting class at a local art center, where I could unleash my creativity without fear of judgment. I spent time nurturing my small apartment, transforming it into a space that truly reflected me. A place no longer open to others taking up my time and energy. Gradually, I felt myself becoming a new person. I no longer felt guilty about saying no or afraid to set boundaries. My family could continue calling me selfish, but I knew the truth. What I was doing wasn't selfish. It was self-respect, self-love, and choosing to live the life I deserved. As time passed, I gradually realized a simple yet powerful truth. Self-respect is not selfish. I used to confuse sacrificing for my family with abandoning myself. I thought love had to be expressed through submission and compliance. But now I understand that true love must begin with respecting myself. Living life on my own terms made the difference clear. Without being bound by unfair expectations, I felt more energized than ever. I no longer felt exhausted or resentful from doing things I didn't want to do. Instead, I spent my time nurturing my soul, reading my favorite books, exploring new places, and engaging in activities that brought me joy. Of course, my family didn't stop criticizing me. My mom continued leaving long, guilt-filled voicemails, Ellie kept posting sarcastic remarks on social media, and Jessica occasionally sent cold, pointed emails. But instead of feeling hurt or angry, I simply deleted them quietly. Their words no longer held the power they once did. I had learned how to protect myself, not by confronting them or trying to make them understand, but by letting go of things that no longer aligned with my life. I don't know if my family will ever understand my decision, but that doesn't matter anymore. I've chosen my own path, the path that leads to peace and freedom, and I will never look back. The lesson from this story is the importance of setting boundaries and respecting yourself. In life, sacrifice and helping others are valuable, but they shouldn't come from obligation or exploitation. Saying no when necessary is not selfish, it's a way to protect your balance and personal happiness. We need to learn to prioritize ourselves, listen to our feelings, and let go of relationships that lack mutual respect. Self-respect is the foundation for building a peaceful and meaningful life. Share your thoughts on this story. Have you ever faced similar situations? Don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful stories about family, life, and valuable lessons. Let's spread positivity together.